Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bola Show. And as you know, we are all still under the lockdown mode, MCO mode here in Malaysia. All of us still sitting on at home. So it's me, Elvin, now on the mic, and I would like to bring in my two co-hosts as well. So, how's it going, Bala?
Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm kind of a lucky guy because I'm still under essential service, so I'm still able to go out. But I need to rush back before 8 o'clock because roadblocks are everywhere. How about you, Steven? Having a same old time?
Okay, hello everyone. So even though yes, I'm part of essential service, but my company so far has been pretty flexible enough to allow me to continue to work from home on a full-time basis for now. Well, that's one part of it. But of course, I sort of like miss the outside world. So hopefully we will find a solution to all this. We will beat this pandemic and, we can start resuming our life. But
yeah, great to hear that, Steven. So, Steven, we have somebody special on the show today. Would you like to introduce to us?
Of course. Okay. As you all know, football, maybe the game has stopped, but the conversation will always continue. So for that, we have decided to bring someone who I'm very sure people on Twitter probably knows him as in the football player, but maybe not knows him as the person. So without further ado, let's welcome everyone, Marco Negri, to our Bola Show podcast.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Welcome, man.
I'm not a player, by the way.
Yeah.
I just tweet by the name, but I'm not him. I'm not him as the player,
Okay, so basically the biggest news this week in football, I would say without a doubt, is the takeover involving Newcastle United. But, we're going to go a bit nostalgic back to the season where I would say for many Newcastle fans, they would probably say that this is the one that got away. Of course, in one of our previous episodes, we talked about Blackburn. It was a happy episode for Bala. Not so much happy for you, Elwin. But in this season, of course, you had all the happiness. But without a doubt, I think I would say the most entertaining team of that season, I'm sure you'll agree with me, Marco, was Newcastle United, right?
That's right. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, how I started to get to know about Newcastle was actually much earlier. Even this was in the early 1990s. When I first started watching the English game, this was a time in Malaysia where there was no internet, and the only source of information, I don't know about you guys then, but for me, there were two magazines that called Shoot and Match.
Oh yes.
Absolutely.
So, you see, I knew I was going to get
all our pocket money, our savings, and all gone through.
Same thing, it's so different when you look at back then, and what it is today. If you want to have if you need information about Blackburn or clubs like Nottingham Forest or some of the lower leagues club, you just it's just within fingertips. You just look them up on Google, and you have within a few seconds you'd be well appraised of the latest developments. But back then you have to rely on Shoot and Match. So that was what happened to me as well. So I was buying these magazines faithfully, just to get my dose of what was going on in the English game. And I started in 1992-93 when the Premier League was in its inaugural years. Obviously the draw at the time was Manchester United, the more established clubs. But I remember there was one edition of I think it was Shoot that had a special on Newcastle, a club called Newcastle at the time, Newcastle United, which was very alien to me, winning the first division championship. This was a club led by Kevin Keegan. Of course, we knew who Kevin Keegan was as a player in Liverpool. So that was when I got it. Sort of intrigued me, But this is an up and coming club, and you want to see, how Kevin was going to take them up, because you read that that Sir John Hall was the first chairman, and he brought in good players, Rob Lee, Bob Bracewell, Andy Cole, was also starting out. And that year. But as Steven said, definitely 1995, season 95-96, for a lot of people, for a lot of fans, was the season that Newcastle introduced itself to as a football power that is to be reckoned with, so to speak. So yeah, I think the build-up within that win, that first division win up to the 95, 95, 96 season was spectacular in a sense that the Northeast clubs were really, showing themselves as a force to be reckoned with, under Keegan. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Elvin, of course, when you look at the squad, that Newcastle team, I mean, they had a lot of exciting names. I mean, maybe you want to share a little bit on who are those players then? Yep.
Yeah. So the Newcastle squad indeed had lots of interesting players and all that, and in goalkeeper, of course, at time you guys had a dilemma, I think, right, between Chaka Islop and then Pavel Srinicek came in at the second part of the season, right? And then, of course, like what you mentioned, Rob Lee. I think overall the Newcastle team, they had this firepower, right, Marco up front, but don't you think the defense, they were suspect at the back, defensive wise? What do you think? There was I think Button was on the right, playing on the right? Beresford on the left.
Peacock.
So you had like Darren Peacock Darren Peacock as well. So yeah, so basically these are the names lah, the household names of the Newcastle squad at that time, Siwan. Yeah. And Marco, anything you want to mention about
I
these
think,
guys?
again, I'll just go back to how Newcastle were trying to establish themselves as a football powerhouse in the English game. They invested for that season itself. St. John Hall was the chairman, then brought his millions with him and invested in big players. Les Ferdinand. I mean, we talk about the attacking side of things. You have Les Ferdinand. You have David Ginola. Definitely one of the best wingers playing in the English game at the time. Faustino Asprilla, was my favorite. He came in earlier in early 1996 in the season, but definitely one of those that lit up Newcastle's attack. But the 95-96, I mean, just going into how these players were performing, I think it was a great. Definitely, I can agree with you that there was some. I mean, they were taking a side and flair of things. You were seeing the goals being scored, and they were taking a commandable lead within the league standings. By January 1996. But as you said, with the issues of such as focus and defense, they had a good goalkeeper. It's either Chaka Hislop or Srinicek, but that was a fortunate thing. When you have other issues like defense, that it sort of it doesn't quite help. And then when Manchester United having Cantona back in the team, that actually propelled. I mean, after serving a long and lengthy suspension, so that I think didn't help Newcastle as well. So yeah.
And when you look at Les Ferdinand, isn't that the guy is like a beast, right? He's like an unstoppable train, right? You just look at the guy when imagine Les Ferdinand running at a defender. I wouldn't want to be that defender, man.
Yeah, I think it was one of the best signings that in attack that Keegan invested in, because it was a type of football that Keegan wanted to bring to Newcastle. He wanted to have that attacking player, and he wanted to ensure that the goals were going in. So it was important that he invested into the right striker like Les Ferdinand. For Asprilla, for me, he came in to Newcastle also at the right time. He was at his peak in Parma.
Yeah.
In Serie A. I mean, when you think about what a club like Newcastle were able to do at the time, Serie A was at the time still the best league in Europe, and this is Asprilla coming from a Parma team which had finished in the third, fifth, minimum third in Serie A or fifth in Serie A rather, and they were able to reach the European Cup final, in the 19th. within the earlier seasons, and they even made it
FIFA
to the
Cups.
Coppa Italia. That's right. And this was and a player of Asprilla's stature coming into a club like Newcastle, to me at the time was a big draw. I would say, and I'm sure that a lot of people, a lot of fans worldwide would have started supporting Newcastle thanks to this investment into the players. Number one, exciting players like Esprilla, Ferdinand, and number two, the type of football that they were making. Because I think a lot of people were rooting for a club that could replicate or emulate what Blackburn did, the season before, which was, one of those underdogs, being able to stop the dominance of Manchester United, Liverpool, and others, from winning the league. So they wanted a club like Newcastle, to be able to do the same. So everyone was suddenly, becoming a Newcastle fan, and they wanted Newcastle to be the team, to do it in 95 and 96 season.
Right. Of course, by February, Newcastle were at the top of the table with 12 points. I think at that point of time, everyone's money will be on them to finally win their first league title since the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. But where did it all go wrong? I mean, Marco, is there anything you can share on which aspect that it will all go wrong?
Okay, I think it's, again, if I must say that the dropping of points didn't help. I mean, first we talk about the surge of Manchester United. They were. I mean, by January they were losing. But I mean, it's not losing. They were behind by 10 points rather. And they were bolstered by the return of Cantona. Again, as I said, from a very lengthy suspension, and he drove that team so good, that they were able to enjoy a surge in form. And then as for Newcastle, they were suddenly dropping vital points, if I remember correctly, there were some big games, some important games away. West Ham, Manchester City, some of it, they needed to win, but they were dropping points and they didn't get the points because Manchester United was already catching up. And then there was a game at St. James's Park in March, which Alex Ferguson won. Alex Ferguson's team won, and that actually ended Newcastle's home record in the league, and suddenly their lead was cut to a single point, So it became harder to defend that league standing, for them. And then as we all remember, I mean, they were suffering defeats after that as well, to Arsenal, and of course to the Liverpool game, which has been dubbed the greatest Premier League game in history.
Yep.
So of course, and that they just simply allowed Manchester United to overtake them, and then it just became impossible for them to sort of catch up, unfortunately.
Yep. In fact, looking back at the MU game, I will share something with you guys. Of course, with 4 points different, I knew that this is the game where it will either make or break Newcastle season. And throughout the game, I was seeing Newcastle were attacking from all angles. Some of the effort saved by Schmeichel, some of the effort hit the bar. I know deep down, there's only, against Man United with Eric Cantona, there's only one outcome in a game like this. And Elwin, what is the outcome?
1-0 Cantona. Right? I think
as soon as when that happened, I knew, okay, I think this is game over. I mean, looks like MU is going to win the game.
I mean, that game was definitely, Newcastle were fully in control, right? They were really pounding MU left, right, center, halftime, they were completely in control. And then, then you had that break on the left-hand side, the cross came in and Cantona half volley into the net. So the rest is history, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in fact, you mentioned Liverpool's game. I will have to say this also. The Newcastle team were a very exciting team. But they were even more exciting when they lose games because that Liverpool game was one of the most dramatic games. I mean, Bola, what happened that game for Kevin Keegan?
I think the match was very interesting. And then after the 3-3 draw, about the last minute, I think Stan the Collymore scored that vital winning goal. But of course, people were looking at the celebration. One thing caught me was the Kevin Keegan. I remember he closed his face with his shirt. Did he lost it, or because you see most of the managers who try to compose players, they fall down and they try to have some kind of what do you call that, sadness or grief, but usually the manager will usually try to keep their sadness between the heart or anything. So Kevin Keegan basically lost it. How do you feel? I think, is it the manager lost control of the situation, or is it that this was it?
Yeah.
Well, I think that game was for Keegan, Kevin Keegan. Sorry, I think it was a bit of some miscalculation on his part. They knew that the strategy going into that game was, they needed to win, or they needed to get points, just to keep their title chances alive. Yeah, I mean, this is a situation where Keegan just wanted to play his open attacking game, and then you have Stan Collymore, which was playing extremely well in that game, making it 3-3, after Newcastle having been able to lead. But still, Kevin Keegan still wants to go for the kill. He wants to win, despite his players being very exhausted. Because you're talking about a football action which was 100 miles per hour. People, they were very exhausted from that game. And then when you have a flagging defensive line that was unable to mark players, upon being exhausted by such a fast game, Collymore was able to, put one in past Pebble String check, and that was when we were talking about Keegan slumping despairingly in the dugout. So to me, again, it was a matter of Keegan slightly miscalculating the whole tempo of the game, despite wanting to go for the win. I think he didn't judge full fan, or you're a Newcastle fan. I mean, it has to be a game that that would sort of stuck to your mind. I mean, for a Newcastle fan, it's probably a mixed. It's one of those mixed memories, that you want to remember about. I mean, your team having to lose that game despite playing beautifully. So yeah, I think that's as much as I can say about that game.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course, that season will go down in history for another infamous moment, for not just for Newcastle but also in English Premier League history. The Keegan rant on television. I mean, it's still something that is fresh in everybody's memory. I mean, would you say, Marco, at that point of time, it's considered like United's title it's already theirs in their hand?
I mean, this is another. I mean, what is typical of what we see in football even today. These are just those mind games that the managers play on each other. So this was exactly what was happening. Also, just as a refresher for those listening in. It's Keegan was saying. Keegan was being interviewed on. On Sky Sports, or was on TV. I think we also saw that clip on YouTube. Closer to the title, closer to the end of the season, and his team was winning at Leeds, and the "I will love it" rant was, was a manifestation of his irritation towards the comments made by Alex Ferguson. I mean, because Ferguson was stoking tensions when he casted doubts on. The commitment of opposing teams such as Leeds and Nottingham Forest were not trying as hard against Newcastle as they did against Manchester United. I mean, this is just another one of those mind games that I think that that made Keegan lose his cool, and it adds up to actually it's when he said I would love it if you beat them. I mean that image, still a lot of people's minds and memory, but it made up for a very exciting football competition, in that season. So yeah.
Okay. Marco, do you feel that maybe Keegan has directly fall into the traps of Ferguson?
Yes, I mean, I think he did not respond personally. I mean, I think the best approach to mind games is that you play them carefully, and then especially, when at the heat of the moment and you're talking on television or to a bunch of press, and like we see today in the English Premier League, Jose Mourinho and some of these managers, they get easily agitated by some of the comments made by opposing teams. So I think, yeah, I mean, Keegan he made up for good TV when Keegan said that, but otherwise, even today, when you see Mourinho or whichever manager that just ejects from his seat just because, you get annoyed at some of the comments made to him by the journalists or even the opposing manager. But yeah, I think it's probably one. You don't have to, but for the theatrics and for football entertainment, for TV, I think it's one of those. It's one of those fun times. It's one of those fun things that they can do. Even when you play Football Manager, you have to choose 6 or 7 options as responses to either an opposing manager or journalist. So some of the choices have very bizarre answers, and I never dared click on them, to be honest, to see what happened to the morale of my team. So I'm a very safe football manager player, when it comes to media management per se.
Okay.
All right. So with that, we will wrap up this segment, and coming up next, we will look into the Bobby Robson and Mike Ashley era. Okay, welcome back to our next segment. And as mentioned earlier, we're going to focus first on the Bobby Robson era. Now, Marco, Newcastle in the post-96 season, a lot of the promises that supposed to happen, the signing of Shearer for world record transfer fee that's supposed to finally deliver them a Premier League title, that didn't happen. Keegan left. I think Douglas was hanging there for a while. Ruud Gullit, sexy football, wasn't so sexy at all. Then came Bobby Robson. I mean, that sort of like revitalized the club extremely well, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I extremely agree. I think the problem with Gullit was that he lost the dressing room immensely. From the top to bottom, there were people not. The players were not playing for him. So you needed. It was an emergency situation in Newcastle that you needed someone who could fix this, and fix it well, because when prior to Bobby Robson coming to Newcastle, the team was languishing at the bottom of the league, and this was unthinkable. You don't want to imagine, and this was just within a couple of games in the season, when Gullit left. So he totally lost the dressing room. And the club needed somebody who could, put things back together the way they were. So Bobby Robson came in and basically brought, life back to the team, to the dressing room. Alan Shearer was being dropped by Gullit. You don't do that to your club, to your club legend. And he did that. So Bobby Robson established sort of what they would call then as a blue chip brigade. These are the boys that the senior in the teams that he would rely on to help shape up the team again. It was Shearer, Rob Lee, Shea Given, and Warren Button and Steve Harper. So they were all sort of the troops that were loyal to Sir Bobby and wanted to help him bring the squad again. So they were meeting together again. Bobby Robson made them wear suits again, and meet at the hotel pre-match. This was to boost up their morale, and to make them feel as a unit again. Simple things, but it helped to improve the team's performance on the field and the mentality in the long run. So they were, so they had a safe season. They were safe that season, So a lot of the players that, under Gullit, some didn't even have a squad number, like they will be totally sidelined and not being used as much as they should. like Robert Lee, under Robson, they were becoming leaders, on the field. Robson, during his time, players like Nikos Davizas, my favorite, Norberto Solano, from Peru, they suddenly became important, So they were frustrated under the previous regime, and Bobby Robson, again, as I've said, brought life and took out the frustration from these players. It's like as if they went back, to town. So these are I would say Bobby Robson did it by bringing back the basics to the club and had, senior players guiding, the younger ones on how to behave themselves. So that really made him a successful manager in his first years at Newcastle.
Okay. And of course, the arrival of Bobby Robson also, propelled Newcastle into the Champions League era. And Bala, of course, your Juventus team were in the same group with them. I mean, what a season that was for Newcastle.
I think Newcastle was doing, I think first 3 games they lost. In fact, they didn't score a single goal against any team. I think the group consists of Feyenoord, Juventus, of course, and also Dynamo Kiev. Despite, I think on the paper, would be a direct fight between the Newcastle and Dynamo Kiev and Feyenoord because Juventus were expected to top the group. So I think the top, especially with the Dynamo Kiev, with the previous history of the Champions League, wouldn't be should be a favorite. But after the first 3 games, I think they did poorly. Came into the 4th game, Newcastle at St. James Park expected to lose again to Juventus. And bearing in mind Juventus in the Champions League final against Milan. Of course, we don't want to talk about the final against Milan. But I think Newcastle did beat Juventus with the Andrew Griffin goal. And subsequently, they able to come back with the sponsored 2 goals, the 2 games, and they beat Dynamo Kiev in St. James Park as well, and also beat Feyenoord away with the Bellamy scored an incredible last-minute goal. What do you think about Marco Negri? I think it's been after the first 3 games, I think he would have lost all the hopes. But after that, I think hope came back very strongly, and he moved on to the second phase of the group stages. As a fan, how did you went through this roller coaster?
Yeah, well, I think they did see a lot of. I mean, when you talk about Champions League football, so that season was sort of a pinnacle season for Newcastle. There were moments in the past, when Skrilla scored a hat-trick against Barcelona, but overall, was it a successful campaign? Not really. They were just highlights of their achievements in the Champions League. Some of the games that they were able to pull off. But this season, I mean, for that 2002 and 2003 Champions League, definitely it was one of the highlights. That Sir Bobby was able to bring in their Champions League campaign. To me personally, I think. Again, we were talking about it earlier. It was an issue of Newcastle never having able to fix their defensive line. At the time it was Robbie Elliott, Andy O'Brien, Nikos Davizas. In the English game, they added adding Titus Bramble to that. In the English game, this was probably what people would have called a nationwide a championship defense. As opposed to a Champions League. Defense, but they had a great forward line, I mean, they had some good strikers, Shearer and everybody else was leading the line, So it meant that they were going to have a tough campaign, but they managed to make it to the next group stage. The way to look at it was that there was no side that had ever lost, their first 3 Champions League game, and then being able to progress to the second group stage. And this was, again, what Sir Bobby was able to achieve with this team. You must remember also that, they went into the tournament, naively, sort of strolling, with those players that they had. You're talking about, there was one time when they went against, what was it? I think it was Bayer Leverkusen, sorry. It was Treso Lomano Lualua and Shola Amiobi was leading their line, thanks to suspension by Craig Bellamy and the others. But they were able to mature in such a short space, that
There's
for a lot of people
I
that
think.
that's right. You
Yes.
know, in that short space, they were able to achieve a knockout place. It was, arguably deserved, for them.
I think that time Champions League they have a second stage of a group. I think even the
That's
group, they ended up with the Barcelona, Inter Milan,
Yeah,
and Leverkusen, like you said. And
Yeah.
of course, they beat the Leverkusen home and away
yeah,
and able to took some points from the Inter Milan. Of course, they lost to Barcelona home and away, but for me, I think as a Newcastle fan, it's still an achievement.
Yeah.
So I think, what do you feel again, once again, after coming very close of qualifying to the knockout stage?
Well, I think it goes back to the genius of Sir Bobby, in terms of how he was able to develop this team. Again, as I've said, I think they themselves understood that they were being placed against, Barcelona, Inter, even in the earlier stages, they had Juventus and all that. Coming in with your set of players, being Newcastle, not having had, a fantastic European track record prior to that, and with the set of players, like I said, Tresolomano, Lolwa, and Shole Almobi leading your, offensive line for some of the games, this is probably not the way to do it if you were to get a commendable position in Europe, but I would definitely credit Sir Bobby in terms of his genius and his brilliance, to guide this team, to make them mature. I read that that moment that they went to Inter and played in Italy, thousands of fans from England went. So that was to me a fantastic moment for the club. People never thought that they would get there, but it happened. Irrespective of them getting the end result that they wanted, it didn't matter. It made up for a defining European campaign.
But do you think that with the progress they were making under Bobby Robson, was it a bit premature for Newcastle to, release him from his job?
Well, I think, see, this is the thing, some people set standards that are too high for him to achieve, particularly the board in this case, the year that he was, the season that he was sacked, at the end of the season, they finished 5th in the Premier League, and they were able to reach the semi-finals of the UEFA Cup, When you think about that, and you look at the Newcastle today, I think everyone would have gladly accepted, such a finish to the season by any Newcastle side, But like I said, some people had to just set very, very high standards, and of the fact that they felt that he was not achieving as how he should. So was it fair that he got sacked? I don't think so. I don't think so. Just because that I think maybe they had put so much hope on winning a trophy that UEFA Cup, for example, or any of the domestic trophies that they could have won. That they were frustrated he was not able to deliver either one that cost him his job. And this it didn't bode well when there was a big bust up, as I read, between Sir Bobby and one of the board members. So it was there was no way that they could. It was uncalled for, but it was one of those things where that it was going to be the end of Sir Bobby. It was a bit unfortunate, and to me, he should have at least been given another season or so, because that moment on, you see sort of the demise of the Newcastle team that people love.
Yeah, as you mentioned, in the post, when the Bobby Robson era finished, then came the Mike Ashley era. So, Elwin, this is a big, sort of like a yin and yang, right, between what they were during Bobby Robson's era, and then here comes Mike Ashley, how things turn around.
Yeah, exactly. And yin and very appropriate yin and yang, same colors as Newcastle. Yeah. So the black and white we see there. In fact, Marco, this we would like to get a bit into this Mike Ashley era now, right? So this era, as of today, is 13 years old. I mean, it's 13 years to where it is today. We are not sure what's going to transpire after this coming soon. But Mike Ashley being the businessman that owns Sports Direct and all this. In fact, I think I did read up about this a bit. The guy during his beginning stage, in fact, was quite close to the fans. He used to sit down with the fans and get involved with the away supporters, going and watching games with them and all that. So I think initially the fans were looked at this as some sort of optimism. But what do you think are the problems during this chapter under Mike Ashley? Yeah.
The first thing about Mike Ashley, you see, he's self-made billionaire, So to self-made billionaire, he was running a successful business empire, Sports Direct.com. I think everybody knows those chains. I bought some.
I think a lot of us bought something from Sports
we
Direct.
would have bought something, from the chain. It was a very successful chain. I mean, typically because of its pricing. People love buying things from Sports Direct. I don't know whether people would agree with me or not, but I think that was a model. He was able to make the chain successful because of its pricing. So the thing about that said, I mean, Mike Ashley was a good business person. Now, see, this actually became, and this is actually the problem when it came to football, was that he wanted to run the football club, which is Newcastle United, like one of his business operations, So that was probably the thing that became the problem for him. Now, as a fan, guys, I think when you hear a new owner coming in, somebody like mine actually who had the billions in terms of worth and assets, the things that you would expect from him to do would be to invest in players, in new players, in exciting players, in the big names. But the things that he did that didn't help himself with his fans were, they were very, it looked small time, like for example, he changed the name, the name St. James's Park is so sacred, you don't mess with something like that. What did Mike actually did? He changed it to Sports Direct Arena. when he took over, because he wanted to, because he wanted because he wanted to promote his business, and he wanted to establish that, the club is now one of his business entities, so to speak. So as a fan, you just provoke hatred. You sort of distance yourself from the past when you do these things. Because I think the last thing that you want to do when you take over a club is that you do things that goes against the history and tradition of how the club is, is used to, and how it's being run. You don't touch things that are sacred to the club, like the name of the club, the name of the stadium, for example. Vincent Tan had similar issues when he was taking over Cardiff. He was changing their home kit color, he was messing around with the club logo. So because they were just they were just bringing in their business acumen and logic into the football operations. So that really distanced himself from the fans. Aside from him having some issues also with his employees at Sports Direct, But yeah, and I think it's a situation that over the years became beyond repair, And I think at one point he himself knew that it was one of the mistakes that he made, which was buying the club in 2007 when he shouldn't have.
So, I mean, what about Mike Ashley and the managers, the football managers and all that? Because he did bring back Kevin Keegan for a second spell, which only lasted like 8 months. Even that fell down after that. So, is he didn't see there was no ambition from him in spending money, making signings. Were you aware of any were there possible deals that were almost to be signed, and then the guy just pulled the plug, where the manager got cheesed off or something like that? Yeah.
I didn't do enough research on. I think there were. I can't remember who the players were. That the scouts would have shortlisted as potential signings, but I can't remember under which particular manager. I mean, definitely Rafa Benitez is the most famous manager who had to suffer thanks to thanks to this this first strings. These policies that might actually impose on the club, which was I don't have a lot of money to spend to begin with. In the past, you can say that okay, maybe when he wanted to remove Keegan for personal reasons, maybe there was a bust up or something. But Glenn Roeder, there was Glenn Roeder, there was Sam Allardyce in the past, whatever that they were able to accomplish or not accomplish, maybe there were merits to their sackings. But I think universally, any manager had to suffer under him was that the choice of not wanting to invest in the players, for example, the players, that the club should have purchased if they were serious on making a statement. I mean, you're talking about Michael Owen being the most expensive signing the club has ever made. And this was 2004, season 2004, 2005, until Miguel Almiron came in January last year. You're talking about a space of 15 years until they actually broke their own club record. That was insane. But you must understand also, I think from Mike Ashley's standpoint, being a business person and knowing how much money had to be spent on operations itself, paying player wages, plus you're not making that much profit anyway, from other source of income overseas. So he wanted to ensure that he would still be able to get some returns. He just decided to make sure that keep as I'm able to make some money out of this venture, and keep the club in the Premiership, while having those ambitions. I'm happy. So he's one of those owners that I'm not going to invest and make a loss or having to pay more at the end of the season. So he was that type of operator, and any manager wouldn't have been pleased, if they were to be given this situation.
So this is I think for any club, right? When their owners and all that start to run this as a corporation or as a business, then there's always a thin fine line, like about wanting to spend money or wanting on the other end to make profit. Because okay, I would like in fact open up this question to all of us here. Like, can you guys recall any club? I mean, I can't really think of one except I think maybe Arsenal, okay, who are also in a way not doing really well, but quite very profitable. Clubs that are actually making money, running and making money, and showing a green line profit and all that. But when you look at them in terms of results or championships and trophies, these guys are struggling. Yeah, I mean, so this is the dilemma, I think, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, when I was reading this book called Soccernomics, it clearly says the rule of making your football club successful is to spend money. You spend money on your club, okay? And because they always look back at your football club is sort of like like an SRC project of your main company's business, And so if you don't spend money, if you don't buy players, you don't invest in good squad and facilities and all that, it's impossible for any team to go that far. That's why Arsenal were able to just hang in there for a long time until when the moment they missed out of the Champions League football, that's when cracks started to appear everywhere. Yeah.
I think from my point of view, I think basically is everything must like a business. There must be incoming and outgoing. So the fine balance is between how you want to balance it. Like you see Ajax, maybe they are maybe a business profit, maybe they sell players and they get return back of the investment. Or maybe like even Real Madrid, maybe they get the greatest players on earth and then try to replicate their success in terms of trophies and sponsorship. So at the end of the day, I think how actually the business strategy is done. So I think, to be fair, it's very hard to do a final, but any business which is making a loss, it ended up, I think even for now, any company, it's a matter of how we actually, what is business model actually.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, Marco. Yeah.
I think I'll just say that I think in the case of Newcastle, this was the principle that Mike actually had adopted, which was, just rationalizing the business, in this case, the club, minimize wages, minimize transfers, maximize your commercial value. I think he was holding on to these three principles with the absolute minimum target, which was surviving in the Premier League. Because to me, it appeared like that, and as a fan, it takes a lot of patience for you to stick with the club if this was the policy that they wanted. And like I said, it cost him. Everybody wanted him out at the end of the day.
So before we move, you're saying something, Alvin?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, what Marco said was correct. So there's always this issue here about clubs wanting to spend and not spend and increase commercial value. But to me, I think commercial value, you can increase your commercial value through success. But then again, if you want to get success, you got to make the signings to get the success, right? So it's a nasty cycle there. So whether these guys are actually willing to take that plunge and do it or not. Yeah, Steven.
Okay, before we move into the next segment, the fact that we are still in that Bobby Robson, Mike Ashley era within that space of 20 years, there's one important part of Newcastle that I think we forgot, which is the movie goal. So, so in your opinion, Marco, where would Gavin Harris and Santiago Munez be among the greatest Newcastle players?
Wow. I don't know, man. There's so many. This is the toughest question I have to answer, But yeah, definitely among the very top, I mean, I have my a lot of players came and graced the club, to different seasons, but those two are definitely at the very top. That's all I can say.
I mean, it's amazing that Hollywood, when they decided to venture into football, they picked Newcastle. There must be a reason. And a lot of things I learned is because of the fan base, the following, the support for the club, that passion part. So I can understand why they actually picked Newcastle for their base to do the movie when they could have picked, Real Madrid, United, or so many other clubs. Yeah. Okay. So with that said, we will wrap up this segment. And coming up next, probably the most important business decision made in football in the 21st century. Okay, everyone. With that said, we will end part one of our Newcastle with regards to Newcastle United. Stay tuned for part two, where we will be talking on the potential takeover from Saudi Arabia and many much more topics that we will focus on.